참으셨대. Reading non-Sanskrit chapters of Buddhacarita. I read chapters 1 through 14, which are in Sanskrit, and then the Sanskrit gets cut off, I believe, somewhere in chapter 14. Cuts off at verse 31, shloka 31, because Canto 14 has 108 shlokas, only 1/3 are saved. And after that, all the Sanskrit has been lost. They translated parts of, you know what, I'll read parts of 14, because that's not in Sanskrit. So let me change the title and see if this book also has. All right. Yeah, it has it. So they see Sanskrit version only goes up to verse shloka 31, and so I'm gonna read from shloka 32 to 108 today. I'm gonna change that to Canto 14. How do you write 14? I forgot. Okay. But I'll put that 32, verse 32, and one wait. And once again, these are non-Sanskrit versions, non-Sanskrit chapters of Buddhacarita. Buddhacarita was originally written in Sanskrit, and only 14 chapters, the first 14 chapters have survived in the original Sanskrit. And this is a translation from Tibetan texts that don't have the original, and the Chinese texts. And they surely don't have the original Sanskrit. So these are translated from Tibetan sources and Chinese sources. Okay, so starting at verse 32, or shloka 32. Now I'm going to call it verse 32 because there are no Sanskrit equivalents. Let me just make sure they translated 31. And there is a text. There is a Sanskrit text. Yep, there is. Āmēn naraka prakye kalpa samjinye shupji hurade. I'm gonna triple check here. Let me see if my source has parts of 14. Maybe they found more texts. You never know. I mean, that's really grabbing at straws, but you never know. So on 14, they translated, 32, 31. So I'm gonna read from. So this is correct. Wow. So they never found. So yeah, and it really tells you that in this age, Sanskrit will be destroyed. In Kali Yuga, there's no more people speaking Sanskrit. I'm one of the 10 people in the world who can speak Aryan Sanskrit. There are 25,000 Sanskrit speakers in the world, but that's according to the original Aryan Sanskrit. It's almost gibberish. There, I said it. Yeah, you gotta say it in the original. The original Sanskrit was pronounced in Aryan accent, or Aryan dialect, or Aryan accent. Like Gurushunwa. It's not Gurishina or Gurushina. It's Gurushunwa. Nwa is almost on like noir from French. Gurushunwa. Okay. Give me 42 seconds. Here we go. Mic check. Sorry. Some things require like learning process. You can't just do it right away. Mic check. Okay, cool. Verse 32. At the first even, at the moment of birth, they are gripped by sharp hands, as if sharp swords were piercing them, whereat they weep bitterly. They are loved and cherished and guarded by their kindred, who bring them up with every care, only to be defiled by their own various deeds, as they pass from suffering to greater suffering. And in this state the fools, obsessed with desire, are borne along the ever-flowing stream, thinking all the more, this is to be done and this is to be done. These others, who have accumulated merit, are born in heaven, and are terribly burned by the flames of sensual passion as by a fire. And from there they fall, still not satiated with the objects of sense, with eyes turned upwards, their brilliance gone, wretched at the fading of their garlands. And as their lovers fall helplessly, the apusarasis regard them pitifully, and catch their clothes with their hands. Some look as if they were falling to earth with their ropes of pearls swaying, as they try to hold up their lovers falling miserably from the pavilions. Others, wearing ornaments and garlands of many kinds and grieved at their fall into suffering, follow them with eyes unsteady with sympathy. In their love for those who are falling, the troops of apusarasis beat their breasts with their hands, and distressed, as it were, with great affliction, remain attached to them. The dwellers in paradise fall distressed to earth, lamenting, alas, grove of Chaitararata, alas, heavenly lake, alas, Mandakini, alas, beloved. Seeing that paradise obtained by many labors is uncertain and transitory, and that such suffering will be caused by separation from it. Alas, inexorably this is an especial degree the law of action in the world. This is the nature of the world, and yet they do not see it to be such. Others, who have disjoined themselves from sensual passion, conclude in their minds that their station is eternal, yet they fall miserably from heaven. In the hells is excessive torture among animals eating each other, the suffering of hunger and thirst among the pretas, among men the suffering of longings. In the heavens that are free from love, the suffering of rebirth is excessive. For the ever-wandering world of the living, there is most certainly no peace anywhere. The stream of the cycle of existence has no support and is ever subject to death. Creatures thus beset on all sides find no resting place. Thus with the divine eyesight he examined the 5 spheres of life and found nothing substantial in existence, just as no heartwood is found in a plantain tree when it is cut open. Then, as the third watch of that night drew on, the best of those who understand trance meditated on the real nature of this world. Alas, living creatures obtain but toil. Over and over again they are born, grow old, die, pass on, and are reborn. Further, man's sight is veiled by passion and by the darkness of delusion, and from the excess of his blindness he does not know the way out of this great suffering. After thus considering, he reflected in his mind, what is it verily whose existence causes the approach of old age and death? Penetrating the truth to its core, he understood that old age and death are produced when there is birth. He saw that headache is only possible when the head is already in existence, for when the birth of a tree has come to pass, then only can the felling of it take place. Then the thought again arose in him, what does this birth proceed from? Then he saw rightly that birth is produced from existence due to the power of the act. With his divine eyesight, he saw that active being proceeds from the act, not from a creator or from nature or from a self or without a cause. Just as if the first knot in a bamboo is wisely cut, everything quickly comes into order, so his knowledge advanced in proper order. Thereon the sage applied his mind to determining the origin of existence. Then he saw that the origin of existence was to be found in appropriation. This act arises from appropriating the various vows and rules of life, sensual pleasure, views of self, and false views, as fire arises by appropriating fuel. Then the thought occurred to him, from what cause does appropriation come? Thereon he recognized the causal condition of appropriation to lie in thirst. Just as a forest is set ablaze by a little fire when the wind fans it, so thirst gives birth to the vast sense of sensual passion and the rest. Then he reflected, from what does thirst arise? Thereon he concluded that the cause of thirst is sensation. Mankind, overwhelmed by their sensations, thirst for the means of satisfying them, for no one in the absence of thirst takes pleasure in water. Then he again meditated, what is the source of sensation? He who had put an end to sensation saw also the cause of sensation to be in contact. Contact is to be explained as the uniting of the object, the sense, and the mind, whence sensation is produced, just as fire is produced from the uniting of the two rubbing sticks and fuel. Next he considered that contact has a cause. Thereon he recognized a cause to lie in the 6 organs of sense. The blind man does not perceive objects, since his eye does not bring him The blind man does not perceive objects, since his eye does not bring them into junction with his mind. If sight exists, the junction takes place. Therefore, there is contact when the sense organ exists. Further, he made up his mind to understand the origin of the 6 organs of sense. Thereon, the knower of causes knew the cause to be name and form. Just as a leaf and the stalk are only said to exist when there is a shoot in existence, so the 6 organs of sense only arise when name and form is in existence. Then the thought occurred to him, what is the cause of name and form? Thereon he, who had passed to the further side of knowledge, saw its origin to lie in consciousness. When consciousness arises, name and form is produced. When the development of the seed is completed, the sprout assumes a bodily form. Next he considered, from what does consciousness come into being? Then he knew that it is produced by supporting itself on name and form. Then after he had understood the order of causality, he thought over it. His mind traveled over the views that he had formed and did not turn aside to other thoughts. Consciousness is the causal condition from which name and form is produced. Name and form, again, is the support on which consciousness is based. Just as a boat conveys a man... Okay, the text is missing. The sense to be the boat carries a man underwater and the man carries the boat on dry land, but one would expect to be told that a man propels a boat as the boat conveys the man. That's part of the missing text. Just as a boat conveys a man, consciousness and name and form are causes of each other. Consciousness and name and form are causes of each other. Just as red-hot iron causes grass to blaze, and as blazing grass makes iron red-hot, of such a kind is their mutual causality. Thus he understood that from consciousness arises name and form, from the latter originate the senses, and from the senses arises contact. But of contact he knew sensation to be born, out of sensation thirst, out of thirst appropriation, and out of appropriation similarly existence. From existence comes birth, from existence comes birth, from birth he knew old age and death to arise. He rightly understood that the world is produced by the causal conditions. Music's too loud. My voice is a little too loud. Things are falling. From existence comes birth. From birth he knew old age and death to rise. He rightly understood that the world is produced by the causal conditions. Then this conclusion came firmly on him, that from the annihilation of birth, old age and death are suppressed, that from the destruction of existence, birth itself is destroyed, and that existence ceases to be through the suppression of appropriation. Further, the latter is suppressed through the suppression of thirst. If sensation does not exist, thirst does not exist. If contact is destroyed, sensation does not come into existence. From the non-existence of the 6 organs of sense, contact is destroyed. Similarly, if name and form is rightly suppressed, all the 6 organs of sense are destroyed too, and the former is suppressed through the suppression of consciousness, and the latter is suppressed also through the suppressions. Why am I totally out? Similarly, if name and form is rightly suppressed, all the 6 organs of sense are destroyed too, and the former is suppressed through the suppression of consciousness, and the latter is suppressed also through the suppression of the factors. Similarly, the great seer understood that the factors are suppressed by the complete absence of ignorance. Therefore, he knew properly what was to be known and stood out before the world as the Buddhita. The best of men saw no self anywhere from the summit of existence downwards and came to tranquility, like a fire whose fuel is burnt out, by the Eightfold Path of Supreme Insight, which starts forth and quickly reaches the desired point. Then as his being was perfected, the thought arose in him, I have obtained this perfect path, which was travel for the sake of the ultimate reality by former families of great seers, who knew the higher and the lower things. At that moment of the 4th watch, when the dawn came up, and all that moves or moves out, At that moment of the 4th watch, when the dawn came up, and all that moves or moves not was stilled, the great seer reached the stage which knows no alteration, the sovereign leader, the state of omniscience. When, as the Buddhita, he knew this truth, the earth swayed like a woman drunken with wine, the quarters shone bright with crowds of siddharthas, and mighty drums resounded in the sky. Pleasant breezes blew softly, the heaven rained moisture from a cloudless sky, and from the trees there dropped flowers and fruit out of due season, as if to do him honor. At that time, just as in paradise, manandarabha flowers, lotuses and water lilies of gold and beryl fell from the sky and bestrewed the place of the Shakya sage. At that moment, none gave way to anger, no one was ill or experienced any discomfort, none resorted to sinful ways or indulged in intoxication of mind. The world became tranquil as though it had reached perfection. The companies of deities who are devoted to salvation rejoiced. Even the beings in the spheres below felt joy. Through the prosperity of the party who favored virtue, the Taima spread abroad, and the world rose above passion and the darkness of ignorance. And the world rose above passion and the darkness of ignorance. The seers of the Ikshvaku race, who have been rulers of men, the royal seers and the great seers, filled with joy and wonder at his achievement, stood in their mansions in the heavens reverencing him. The great seers of the groups of invisible beings proclaimed his praises with loud utterance, and the world of the living rejoiced as if flourishing. But Mara was filled with despondency as before a great precipice. Then for 7 days, free from discomfort of body, he sat, looking into his own mind, his eyes never winking. The sage fulfilled his heart's desire, reflecting that on that spot he had obtained liberation. Then the sage, who had grasped the principle of causation and was firmly fixed in the system of impersonality, roused himself, and filled with great compassion, he gazed on the world with his Buddhita eye for the sake of its tranquility. Seeing that the world was lost in false views and vain efforts, and that its passions were gross. I can't say that sometimes. Seeing that the world was lost in false views and vain efforts, and that its passions were gross. Seeing too that the law of salvation was exceeding subtle, he set his mind on remaining immobile. Then, remembering his former promise, he formed a resolution for the preaching of tranquility. Thereon he reflected in Thereon he reflected in his mind how there are some persons with great passion and others with little passion. Then when the two chiefs of the heavenly dwellings knew that the Sugata's mind had taken the decision to preach tranquility, they were filled with the desire for the world's benefit and, shining brightly, approached him. As he set his aim accomplished by the rejection of sin and the excellent Taima he has seen as his best companion, they lauded him in all reverence and addressed these words to him for the good of the world. Ah, does not the world deserve such good fortune that your mind should feel compassion for the creatures? In the world there exist beings of varied capacity, some with great passion, some with little passion. O sage, having yourself crossed beyond the ocean of existence, rescue the world which is drowning. I can't say drown. There are many words I can't say because of my injuries. O sage, having yourself crossed beyond the ocean of existence, rescue the world which is drowning in suffering, and like a great merchant in his wealth, bestow your excellencies on others also. There are some people here who, knowing what is to their advantage in this world and the hereafter, act only for their own good. But it is hard to find in this world or in heaven. But it is hard to find in this world or in heaven one who will be active for the good of the world. After thus addressing the great seer, they returned to the celestial sphere by the way they had come. After the sage also had pondered on that speech, the decision grew strong in him for the liberation of the world. At the time for the alms round, the gods of the four quarters presented the seer with begging bowls. Gautama, accepting the four, turned them into one for the sake of his Taima. Then at that time two merchants of a passing caravan, being instigated thereto by a friendly deity, joyfully did obeisance to the seer with exalted minds, and were the first to give him alms. The sage reflected that Aradu and Udraka Ramaputra were the two who had minds capable of accepting the Dharma, but when he saw that both had gone to heaven, his thoughts turned to the 5 mendicants. Then, wishing to preach tranquility in order to dispel the darkness of ignorance, I want to read that again. It's really profound. The sage reflected that The sage reflected that Aradu and Udraka Ramaputra were the two who had minds capable of accepting the Taima. But when he saw that both had gone to heaven, his thoughts turned to the 5 mendicants. Then, wishing to preach tranquility in order to dispel the darkness of ignorance, as the rising sun the darkness, Gautama proceeded to the blessed city, which was beloved of Maratha, and whose various forests are ornamented by the Varanasi. Then the sage, whose eye was like a bull's, whose gait like a rutting elephant's, desired to go to the land of Kashi in order to convert the world, and turning his entire body like an elephant, it fixed his unwinkling eyes on the Bodhi tree. Okay, that's it. This is Bodhi. Thank you. I'm gonna do writing and recitation. Thank you very much. I'm gonna take like an hour break. Namaste.